Hello and welcome back to the Do Brand You channel. My name is Lorraine Taylor and I'm excited because today we are in conversation with Pete Tanguay, who's going to be sharing a bit about his story, his thoughts, his ideas. And if you are new here, the Do Brand You channel is all about doing the best version of yourself in whatever season of your life. And I wanted Pete to come on because he's got this concept of seasons of life. He relates it to 4 quarters in a football game. And so, Pete, with that, I'm just going to pass it over to you to start the conversation off.
Thanks, Lorraine. It's great to be here. And really, my goal is just to talk a little bit about where I am. And I'm in the 4th quarter. And I gave a speech at a CEO luncheon not long ago where I talked about how in a football game, we have a game plan when we start. And at the end of the 1st quarter, we have to make adjustments. And if the average life of a person is 80 years, then a quarter is 20 years. So when we get to be 20, we've got to say, okay, we're moving away from home. We got to kind of make our mark. And then when we get to be 40 and 60 and I'm 66 now, and I'm right in the middle of the 4th quarter. And so I've done a lot of things, but the real question is, what's my focus today? And my game plan for the 4th quarter has to be different than what it was in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, this is great because one of the reasons I wanted to have a chat with you here is that in a game of football, the 4th quarter is always the most exciting. There's a lot going on. Your key players stay in the game in the 4th quarter always. And I have talked to people and I get this feeling that a lot of people get to retirement age. They finish a job, they close down their business, and then what? And there's this real sense of loss. There's this real sense of no direction. And I think we also are living in an age where there's a bit of a throwaway culture. It's, oh, you're a bit older. Let's let younger people come in. So how would you talk on that? Like, when you got to that, why don't you share a little bit about what you were doing, what happened on that day of retirement, and what choices you made at that point when you went into the 4th quarter?
Okay. I think that's great. And I think before I talk about that, and I know we have a global audience, which is what's great about this. And I can really speak for the United States perspective. Yeah. And there's this perspective that you're going to retire. And in the United States, that means you're going to stop working. Yeah. That's what retirement means. You're no longer going to work. The government's going to give you what we call Social Security, and they're going to give you health care, which is what's called Medicare. And you're going to live out the rest of your life, not working. And so in many respects in our country, that's the goal, is to get to retirement age, stop working. And a lot of people, they put off everything in life till they retire. And that's kind of what that means. And so for me, I didn't really want to stop working. I retired after selling my 3rd, software company. Mm-hmm. And so financially, I'm in a position where I'm taken care of pretty much for the rest of my life, unless I make some serious mistakes. Yeah. But I still have to decide, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? And I don't know. A lot of people are very defined by their work. I don't know that I was that defined by my work. And I think that's why when I retired, it's not that I wanted to keep working, but I wanted to keep making an impact. I wanted to keep being significant. Yeah. I wanted to kind of take advantage of what I could do. And so, when I retired, it was a 2 or 3 year process of figuring out what's next. And, we talk about the 4th quarter. Yeah. There's in football, if you get to the end of the game and the game's tied, you go into what's called sudden death overtime. And so the funny thing about being in the fourth quarter is if you get to the end of the fourth quarter, you go to some kind of sudden death overtime. Yeah. So I'm very much more than ever aware that my life is going to end. Nobody's escaped it ever.
Yeah.
And so what am I going to do now? And that's really what my focus is.
So, I mean, that leads, I mean, I know there's people listening here that are in that situation now or know that that's going to come up. And also, I mean, we do have people that are trying their best to retire, before they get to that golden age. And then what? So do you have anything to speak on in regards to what made you push through and say, and actually find something to do? I mean, how does that actually happen? Because when we're working or we have a business, we're so busy. And then it just seems like the people I talk to, that period of time gets really empty.
Right. Well, I think for me, fortunately, because I was able to run my own businesses, yeah. I've always been mostly concerned about the quality of the products we developed, the customer experience that we created, the relationships we built. And so I just kind of moved into that in a retirement phase. And so what I might say to the younger generation that are still working is find more meaning in your work so that when you stop working, you can find more meaning in your retirement. And if you're just killing yourself every day so that someday you can get to retirement and finally live, that maybe that's not the best approach for your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Yeah. And so when I retired, it was, how do I keep really making an impact on people? What's important to me? But more important, if I'm really in the fourth quarter and I'll be gone soon, what's the legacy I want to leave? Yeah. Yeah. And, I had a long time ago, I had somebody, or I actually was listening to it was actually a presentation, and it was about dreaming and like, what's your dream? And they asked the question, what's your 500-year plan? Wow. And it seems kind of crazy. It's like, what do you mean 500-year plan? Who has a 500-year plan? Yeah. But there have been people in history that have impacted people for 500 years. And so it's just about, how can I do something? We all think about, I'm going to leave a legacy through my children, but that's one generation kind of. But what could I do that would make an impact? And 400 years from now, it still has an impact. And so I just spent a lot of time thinking about, what are those things, and how can I do that?
Yeah, I love what you're saying here, and it makes me want to ask the question now. So if let's say I am somebody that's in my 30s and I have that plan that I either am going to work and become, and grow my professional career, or I'm going to grow a business so that I can retire. And of course, in that stage, your 30s and your 40s, there's often so much to do. There's so much, calling your attention, family, job, whatever. What kind of advice, if you could go back and give advice to yourself back then, or what did you do back then that has really allowed you to be able to move, really seamlessly into this retirement phase, which is more like your fourth quarter?
I think that it's about being fully where you are. And so instead of trying to live in like a dream, or instead of trying to solve the world's problems, which are many, who is around me today that I can make an impact on?
Right.
And if I make an impact, and it could be an employee, it could be a customer, it could be a business partner, it could be a homeless person, it could be anything. Yeah. And how am I really focused on where I am.
Yeah.
And then as where you are changes, that focus will be true. So when I retired, I started a company called Rock Pond Pros. And a pro was a project or product that impact people locally, globally. And what that really means is I've realized if we connect globally, we get a broader understanding of what life is all about. And, a lot of people talk about diversity and how important that is and so on. Well, there's nothing more diverse than global. Yeah. And so if we really, that was a focus that I wanted to really talk to people that were in different religions, different cultures, different geographical locations, different economic things, positions. And I wanted to learn from them so that I could have an impact on where I was. And so I really think that the common theme that I would say to somebody younger is don't just work so that someday you'll get to retire and have a good life. Have a good life.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people say that the focus should be find something you love. I've kind of recently realized it's not necessarily finding what you love, because we all love things that aren't going to help us be successful.
Right.
But if you find something you're really good at and you develop it, you'll love it, and it will be good for you and good for the people around you. So really that's my focus is I look around today, who's important in my life, and I get involved in a lot of things. And a lot of times, like right now, I'm actually in the process of cutting things back because I'm involved in too many things, and really being able to focus on the people and the things that are most important, always looking for something I can do to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I really love that. I just recently read one of Seth Godin's quotes, and it was, it's not that it's something what you said about love, but it's love what you do. And what I like about what you said is how you didn't wait till a period of your life to then live, that you found like being present at every stage and finding that meaning and being that. I mean, in my concept of do brand you, it is about being present, being in the moment of who you are, and just whatever season of life that is having that play out. So I love that. So I know that there's a few people that have influenced you. So I'm interested in who is one person that is quite influential in your life, and how did they impact you?
So, I mean, there are a couple of people when I think of my business life. So I'll think of that. So I had 3 software companies, and the first one I started in 1976, I guess. But back then, in that period of time, Bill Gates was the founder of Microsoft. Yeah. And so I'm big on, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, that we just need to learn from others. And especially, and I think this is something important, is a small company can learn from big companies. And so I had this thing every time we try to figure out, so what are we going to do? I would say, well, what does Microsoft do? And if it's good enough for Microsoft, it's probably good enough for us. And that wasn't always true, but it was often true. Yeah. And it's just like, they've gone through this, they're 100 or 1,000 times bigger than we are. This is how they do it. Let's just do it that way.
Yeah.
Let's not try to, be so unique and try to kind of be the pioneer. Let's just do what big companies found to work. So I think that was the first thing. And then in my last software company, it was Steve Jobs and his whole, vision of creating Apple, and then getting fired by the board and creating Pixar and getting rehired by Apple. And we talk about legacy and so on. I mean, Steve Jobs is no longer with us.
Yeah.
But he's probably in the past 20 years, in my last software company, if it's good enough for Apple, it's good enough for us. He's really been influential in my thinking. I've read his, the 10 ways that Steve Jobs gave a presentation to, I watched his commencement speech at Stanford, which Google that, you need to see it. And he just really had, he was a visionary. And so he meant a lot to me.
Yeah,
and I would say that other person, kind of on the other personal spectrum, the person that really impacted me or impacts me when I think of her is Mother Teresa.
Right.
And she was a person that gave 100% of herself to just meet the unmeetable, unending needs of humans. And I've always respected her. And so, I guess those would be three people that made a difference in my life.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really like what you say about Steve Jobs because, he is the example that he was a visionary and he lived his life, with purpose, with vision, with adding value. And I will put the link to his commencement speech in the notes below because I also have listened to that so many times. But that's the thing. And then he didn't get to the fourth quarter, did he?
No, he didn't. He died in his 50s.
Yeah. And so that's a real telling thing is that, we don't know we don't know if we're going to get to play the whole game, and to make that choice to live a life where we are visionary, and that's really great. I would like to dive a little bit more into any, I don't know, I didn't run a business or anything like that, but if you could share things that you learned along 3 software companies, building those up, right. and what, there's people here I know listening to this channel that are building businesses and they're wanting to do that. So, what kind of things can you offer?
The first thing that comes to mind is that people don't buy things from companies; they buy things from people, and it really is about relationships. It's about win-win partnerships. It's about just taking care of a customer. It's just so fundamental. It's about relationships.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have very successful businesses where they're just focused on the numbers and all that. But in my life, it's always been about how do I deliver the best product that works, that solves the need? How do I help a customer understand the need? How do I be innovative? And then how do I get to where people want to buy from our company because of who we are, not what we sell? I think I had a lot of, business truths and stuff, but that's the first one that came to mind.
Yeah. And so I know some of the people I talk to really struggle with this concept, especially if they're trying to build something or of their own, is this idea that they've got to get it all right. They've got an idea for a product or service, and they've just got to get it all right before it gets rolled out, before it goes. How did you deal with that? When you're creating things, maybe with a team, how does that happen? Do you wait till it's all perfect, or what do you do?
Yeah. And I don't know. That's a good question. It's, the idea, in the software business, we have the saying that the key is to be first, to look good, and to keep getting better.
Yeah.
And we also had a thing that you have to be willing to develop it once to understand it, and to develop it again to get it right.
Right.
And so it's every business I've been in, I never had a business plan that laid it all out. And then 5 years later, I'm like, I got to the finish line that I was going for. It's like it evolves, and it evolves with good core values of, you know, of taking care of people, of being reliable, of having teamwork, of, you know, simplicity, just, you know, all these things. And so, I mean, I would say focus on what's important, and then everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I've never been the person that created a huge business plan. And even the stuff I'm involved in my retirement age, it's like, it's a vision. And I mean, we have an event venue where our mission is an experience, which is an event, is a dream that comes true. And we just focus on finding people's dreams for an event and making them come true. And the kinds of events that we're doing today, I never dreamed we would do.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I would say is just focus on the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this, you know, like a conversation.
Yeah.
A conversation it's real, and it's two people talking about something.
Yeah.
And there's a connection, and some people listening to this will really connect. Some people will go, that doesn't really make much sense, but that's who we are, and that's who I am. And if it helps, it helps.
Yeah.
But these kinds of conversations, these kinds of relationships, will make your dreams come true.
Yeah.
I think.
I think it's such an important time. We're moving into all of this, you know, AI, but more of a fear of what it's going to do. And I think the solution to that is the human connection. It's, you know, we're still people. It's still about the humanity of people and in who we serve and what we do. I want to ask you a question as well. I keep going back to your work life and not your life now, but because I think you have wisdom to share with people. And that is this question of, you know, when we want to do the best version of ourselves each day, we need to live in balance. It's not about, we have so many goals every day to accomplish, and if we accomplish them, then we've done the best of we could do. It's about taking each day as it is and trying to find that balance in our life and looking after ourselves as well as the needs that we have around us. So when you are at the height of working, maybe a business is, I mean, you had 3 businesses, so some had to not exist, and then others had to be born again, you know, kind of arrive.
Right.
So, and then it's always at that time, there's family, there's things, and there's all of, you know, economics, all of these things. What have you found through your years of experience of being able to find that balance in your life?
And I think that's a good question. And honestly, if I think about that, probably the thing that I would say to people listening is just know that balance is important.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of times in your life where you're out of balance. When you're trying to do a lot of things, you will get out of balance.
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't freak out if you're out of balance. And it's the hardest out of balance times is when there's conflicting groups that are trying to get you back in balance immediately. And so those are tough times when you have, you know, whether you have family issues and business issues and something's got to give, that's a hard time. But balance is something that is a constant effort. And so like right now, my daughter is going back to her second year of college. She's leaving home in 2 weeks. And I'm really wanting to be able to focus on really being present in that time. And so that's part of a balance move. And I think, I guess what I would say is just realize that being in balance is being able to recognize when you're out of balance. Yeah. And then saying what got me out of balance, and first get in balance, and then how do I how do I stay in balance? It's just a constant thing.
Yeah.
You know, you could really be in balance if you really weren't trying to do a whole lot, because you just, if that's what you're just doing one little thing, you're in balance. But if you want to do a lot of things and make a real impact, it's going to be a challenge. One of my favorite sayings is, if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you got. Yeah. And so if I'm out of balance, and I realize the reason I'm out of balance is because I'm putting too much value on what other people think of me. And early in my software career, I mean, as a young child, it was really important to me what my dad thought of me, and to please my dad, and to make him proud of me. Yeah. And I got to a point in my first company where that's how I was treating my customers. And it was the most important thing to me, was that they were proud of me, and that they were appreciated me, and that I was doing a good job for them. And I would sacrifice anything for that. Right. And so I had to learn that if I'm going to keep doing that, that other areas of my life that were very important were going to not be important, because the most important thing is this customer who just called that I have to take care of is going to take priority over the dinner I said I was going to have with my kids. Yeah. And over time, I realized if I keep doing that, I'm going to keep getting what I got. And so you have to say, all right, I've got to adjust that. I got to figure out how to change that, because I don't like what I'm getting. Yeah. And so what I would say is, staying in balance is a difficult thing. And it's really, it's a constant correction. Oops, I'm out of balance again. Yeah. All right, let's get back in balance. But if it took you a month or 6 months to get out of balance, you can't get in balance in a day. Right. You've got to make changes. Yeah. And then stick to them. And that's what I would say about balance.
Well, I really like that, because it's, to just normalize it, and to say, especially for people that are wanting to do things, and that you're just going to always have this struggle, and it's just about being aware of it and then trying to figure it out each time. And even you mentioned now, even in your fourth quarter and your retirement, that, you've got too much on your plate now, and you're just sitting here trying to balance it all up again. But you don't try to avoid not being in balance. You just try to build the skills and the resilience to manage that, I guess. Well, we're coming to the end, and this has been absolutely a fantastic conversation. There's a lot to unpack here. But I do want to ask, I always ask, what is your favorite quote? I know you might have a couple, so if you do have a couple, just do share those. And just to finish up this great conversation, what is your favorite quote or quotes, and why is that? Yeah, and
I mean, I have a lot of quotes, but I really, fortunately for this podcast, I really do have a favorite quote. Yeah. And it's for the people that are younger looking forward, and older looking forward, and so on. But a lot of people ask me, so how did you do what you did? And I'll say, I don't know. It just kind of happened. And we have dreams that adjust, and so on. But my favorite quote is, you can't connect the dots looking forward. Right. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And this is a Steve Jobs quote. Yeah. So you have to somehow trust in your gut that the dots are going to connect in your future. And if I look backward, I can absolutely see how this led to this led to this, and this is how I got this opportunity, and then this was born, and then I did this, and this person, so on. But even at my age, I look forward on, so what's going to happen in the next 10, 20, I have no idea. Yeah. And so you can't say, this is my game plan and I'm going to execute it. And when I'm 20 years older, I'm going to look back and go, yep, that's what I did. Yeah. So my favorite quote is Steve Jobs saying, you can't connect the dots looking backwards. I mean forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to somehow trust that your values, your vision, your mission, your heart is going to make things what you want them to be. And,
I just love that. And what a great way to end this, because you've talked the whole time about being present, and not just in the fourth quarter of life, but if you're present in all parts of your life, it doesn't matter then what season you get in. And if you're present, then that's when you can trust your gut. You can trust that intuition and know, going forward, somehow those dots will connect. And I've certainly found that as well. So thank you so much for this great conversation. Thanks. It's been great. And I'll put some links below if you want to get in touch with Pete. I know if you send him a comment, he'd love to have a chat with you. So thanks again, Pete. This has been great.
Thank you. All right.